This is the United States, the country of cars. That's because its major means of transportation is cars. So the question here is, why are Americans so car-dependent? How long have they been car-centric? And how car-dependent they are compared to other countries? Watch this video to the end if you want to find out those reasons. About 99.3% of people who live in California drive cars, making it the city with the highest number of car owners in the country. New York, on the other hand, is the state with the lowest percentage, with 46 of its residents as car owners. Still high, isn't it? These figures show just how much Americans are car-dependent compared to other countries. Simply put, most U.S. cities grew up with cars. Compared to other countries, it is far cheaper to own a car in the U.S. than anywhere in the world. And that is amongst other reasons why Americans will go for cars any day, anytime. This dependence on cars isn't new. Policies in the United States that adapted cities to automobile travel started between the 1920s and the 1960s and served as a model for much of Western European. However, many European towns began to concentrate their strategies to reduce the use of cars by boosting walking, cycling, and public transportation by the late 1960s. Planners in the United States have been looking to Western Europe over the past 20 years for solutions to car reliance, suburban sprawl, and an escalating unsustainable transportation system, but the situation still remains the same. Let's sum this all in a few different ways. Most Americans feel it's cars or nothing. That is because they are so used to it, and they've been using cars their whole lives, even though there is no data to show the cause of the huge gap between Americans' car usage and that of other countries. One of the main reasons why American metro areas have ended up being so much more car-dependent than cities in Western Europe is widespread motorization. Compared to Europe, the United States experienced mass motorization earlier, largely due to assembly line production's ability to reduce costs. In contrast to Europe, where car ownership was mostly restricted to the wealthy elite, there was already one registered automobile for every 2 families in the United States by the mid-1930s. Additionally, households in the U.S. with higher levels of personal income were able to more easily buy cars than comparable households in Europe with lower levels of income, notably in the years immediately after the Second World War. Another reason is the standards for roads. Initial standards for roads, bridges, tunnels, intersections, traffic lights, freeways, and parking lots were created by American planners and engineers. Successful inventions spread fast to other areas, frequently as standards. Although European cities adopted automobiles much more slowly than American metros did, particularly prior to World War II, Stockholm erected a sizable intercity cloverleaf interchange in the 1930s. Another reason why the U.S. is car-dependent is vehicle taxes. In Europe, taxes on car ownership and use have always been higher, which has assisted in reducing demand for automobile travel. Today, the price of a gallon of fuel in Europe is more than double that in the US. Additionally, since gas tax money in Europe often goes to the general treasury, road expenditure is in direct competition with other government spending. Large portions of the gas tax revenue are set aside for road construction in several US states and at the federal level, ensuring a consistent stream of non-competitive funds for roads. Americans are also car-dependent due to the country's concentration on technology. Instead of changing behavior, policy responses to issues with American car travel have concentrated on technological advancements. For instance, technological solutions to air pollution or traffic safety include things like catalytic converters, newly formulated cleaner fuels, seatbelts, and airbags that allow people to continue driving as well. In addition to implementing these technology requirements, European nations have aggressively lowered speed limits in entire neighborhoods, established car-free zones, restricted parking, and enacted other policies that encourage behavioral changes. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, TechnoGlobal Innovations. Now let's get back to the video. The transit system of the U.S. also contributes to the country's high usage of cars. European transit networks weathered the rise of the vehicle more successfully thanks to ongoing government assistance. Specifically, after the Second World War, privately owned U.S. transit systems raised prices, reduced services, lost ridership, and either went out of business or were saved by public ownership. with assistance from U.S. governments frequently arriving too late. For instance, many cities gradually lost their trolley systems in the 1950s and 1960s. However, streetcar use has since increased. Also, only a few American cities, like Davis, California, have a tradition of implementing amenities for pedestrians and bicyclists since the 1970s. The implementation of extensive networks of bike lanes, separated cycle tracks, off-street bicycle paths, and traffic-calm neighborhood streets in many European cities, led by Münster, Amsterdam, and Copenhagen, has made it simple to travel by bicycle between any point of origin and destination within a city or region. A lengthier tradition of providing networks of walkways, crosswalks, and car-free zones in city centers also can be found in European cities. Furthermore, while U.S. traffic rules, policy, and court juries frequently fail to prosecute or punish drivers who kill pedestrians or cyclists, European traffic laws frequently protect pedestrians and cyclists and place the blame for an accident on the driver. Zoning laws also play a huge role in this. The mechanism for planning land use in Europe and the United States differ greatly. Therefore, trip distance are kept to a minimum, since Europeans frequently permit a wider variety of applications in residential areas. In Germany, for instance, a residential area may contain a doctor's office, a cafe, a corner store, or apartment buildings. American single-family residential zones, however, often prohibit certain usage. In contrast to American cities, where zones typically tend to be much larger, zoning in Germany occurs to be smaller land areas, almost at the block level. This allows for shorter trips, and while the majority of U.S. zoning laws still mandate a certain minimum number of parking spaces, several European nations use maximum numbers to regulate parking system of interstates. The interstate highway system, which quickly crisscrossed the majority of American cities, was built with a 90% match from the federal government of the United States in the 1950s. Interstate helped to enable suburban spread by destroying entire urban areas and cutting them off in conjunction with urban regeneration and slum clearance operations, itself subsidized through mortgage policies. Although usually at a lower level or for a shorter length of time, national governments in Europe also gave road subsidies. Additionally, European motorways, like the high-speed Autobahn system in Germany, often link cities rather than cut through them. Governmental subsidies in the U.S. also contribute to the use of auto. As a matter of fact, only around 60 to 70% of all road-related expenses across all tiers of the U.S. government have been funded over the past 40 years by gas taxes, tolls, and registration fees. The remaining amount have been covered by non-transportation related taxes on property, income, and other things. The United States demand for driving rises as a result of these driving subsidies that lower its cost. In contrast, in European nations, motorists often pay more in taxes and levies than their governments do for constructing roads. Walking has been on the decline as the automobile has become more and more prevalent in American culture. When cars entered already existing urban environments, they competed for space with walkers on old roadways that weren't built to handle an endless stream of motor vehicles. Pedestrians were pushed to the side of the road by cars, not to mention buses, lorries, vans, trams, trolleys, motorbikes, and bicycles, or more literally, the sidewalks. Following this pattern, municipal transportation networks in cities that grew up following the invention of the automobile promoted private automobiles as their main mode of transit. If you like this video about why US cities are all car-based, then make sure to watch any of the videos on our YouTube channel, TechnoGlobal Innovations.